If someone told me that my wife was cheating on me with our daughter's third-grade teacher, I would have laughed in their face. Not because I didn't believe cheating happens. It does. I've seen it tear marriages apart. But with a teacher? Of our own child? That was so vile, so far removed from the clean suburban life we'd built. I couldn't even fathom it. But the worst part isn't just that she betrayed me, it's that she brought our daughter into it. She made her an accessory to the most disgusting chapter of our lives, like it was just another harmless after-school activity. You're watching Confession Reddit, where we tell the darkest, rawest, real-life betrayals people like you and me have been through. If you're new here, hit subscribe, because trust me, these stories are nothing like what you're expecting. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, to when I still believed I had a wife who respected me and a family that was unbreakable. I'm Mark Holloway, 38 years old. I work in IT security for a mid-sized firm in Austin, Texas. Not exactly thrilling work, but it pays well, and more importantly, I get to be home by 5, dinner on the table by 6, and help my daughter Emma with her math homework by 7. My wife, Lindsay, is, or was, I guess, a part-time real estate agent. Smart, attractive, social in a way I never was. People liked her. Men noticed her. And for the first 10 years of our marriage, that didn't bother me. We had Emma late. Lindsay had 2 miscarriages before that, so when Emma finally arrived, crying her little lungs out in that sterile hospital room, I looked at my wife and thought, we made it. This is it. This is what forever looks like. That feeling lasted maybe 8 years. It started small, like it always does. A subtle shift in tone, a difference in how she touched me, or didn't. She used to sit next to me on the couch with her legs touching mine, even if we were just watching the news. Now she sat on the other side, always tired, always distracted, always texting. And it wasn't some new guy on her phone, no suspicious names, no flirty emojis, just constant messages from PTA group or Emma's class updates. So I didn't think anything of it. I just assumed Lindsay had gotten more involved with Emma's school. In a way, it made me proud. We both agreed education was important. Then came Mr. Keaton. Emma brought his name up one evening while I was cooking burgers on the grill. She said, "Mr. Keaton says I write really good stories." I said, "That's great, honey. What's he like?" "He's funny. He wears these shoes with cartoons on them, and Mommy says he's very passionate about teaching." I raised an eyebrow. "Mommy said that?" "Yeah. She says he's young and different and knows how to connect with kids." Something about the way she said it. It clung to me. Lindsay had never used words like passionate to describe a teacher before. She used to barely remember their names. Still, I didn't make a thing of it. A week later, Emma had a parent-teacher meeting. I offered to come with, but Lindsay insisted she had it, said I looked tired and she could handle it. That night she came home later than I expected. I was on the couch, half watching SportsCenter. I said, "How'd it go?" Not looking up. She paused. "Good. Mr. Keaton says Elma's doing great, very imaginative." "That's our girl." I glanced at her then and noticed her hair was down, lip gloss fresh, earrings on. She had dressed up for a parent-teacher meeting. My stomach twisted, but I said nothing. I told myself not to be paranoid. That night she initiated sex for the first time in weeks, and I hate to admit this, but I was grateful for it, even though something felt performative, like she was trying to erase my suspicions before they fully formed. The real shift came 3 weeks later. I was helping Emma with her spelling words when she looked up and said, "Daddy, Mr. Keaton said Mommy is really funny." "Did he?" "Yeah. They went to get smoothies after school, just the 2 of them." I froze. "When was this?" "Today." I felt the blood drain from my face. Lindsay had told me she was going grocery shopping that afternoon. And that's when it clicked. The change in perfume, the sudden interest in Emma's school, the way she defended him when I jokingly said, "That Keaton guy sounds like a bit of a show-off." She snapped, "He's just passionate, Mark. You wouldn't understand." I thought she was just being snappy, but now I realized she was protecting him. And that made me sick. I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I snooped. Checked her phone while she showered, looked through texts, nothing inappropriate, but a lot of messages in the school app between her and Mr. K. Then I screenshotted the chat log and emailed it to myself. Then I looked up Mr. Keaton on Facebook, found his profile. Young, maybe 30, smiled like a frat boy who never grew up. Hiking photos, one where he's holding a drink and wearing a stupid t-shirt that said, literally educated. I wanted to punch his smug face. But what I felt more than anger was shame. Shame that I had let it get this far without noticing. That I was so busy being the good husband that I never questioned her late nights. That I believed, somehow, I was immune to betrayal. 2 days later, I told her I'd be working late. I wasn't. I parked a block from the school and waited. At 4:15 p.m., I saw her car pull in. She wasn't picking up Emma. That had already been arranged by bus. She got out, walked toward the back entrance of the school. A few minutes later, he appeared. Mr. Keaton. No clipboard, no bag, just him and his smug face. They talked, she laughed, then they walked toward the faculty lot and disappeared behind a row of portable classrooms. I waited. 20 minutes passed. Then 30. They didn't come back out. And that's when I knew. I didn't have proof yet, but deep down, something inside me broke. And once it breaks, it never goes back. I didn't go home right away. I sat in the car for another hour, hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I wasn't sure if I was trying to calm myself down or keep from driving back there and doing something I'd regret. When I finally got home, Lindsay was already there, acting like nothing had happened. She was cooking pasta, humming softly like she always did when she was in a good mood. "How was work?" she asked without turning around. I looked at her, really looked. She was still wearing the same outfit from earlier. No sign of guilt, no tension. Just normal. "Busy," I said. "Long day?" She smiled. "You look tired. Sit down, I'll finish this." I sat. I watched her move around the kitchen like everything was fine. And that's what made me feel crazy. Because to her, everything was fine. She didn't know I had seen them. Didn't know I had already started looking into hiring a private investigator. I wasn't going to confront her without proof. Not just for me, but for Emma. Because if this turned into a divorce, I needed the court to know exactly what kind of person Lindsay really was. Over the next week, I acted like nothing had changed. I kissed her on the cheek before work, asked her how her day was, joked with her during dinner. I became the perfect husband on the surface. But underneath, I was watching everything. She went out 2 more times that week to meet a client. She didn't come back with contracts. She came back smiling and humming. I started collecting receipts, screenshots, call logs, GPS data. I even bought a burner phone to text the PI without raising suspicion. The investigator's name was Don McAllister. Gray-haired, ex-military type, ran his own firm downtown. When I told him what I suspected, he didn't flinch. He said, "Teachers and realtors, you wouldn't believe how often it's them." He charged $1,200 for a 2-week surveillance package. I paid in cash. That weekend, I told Lindsay I was taking Emma to visit my brother in Houston. She seemed relieved. Too relieved. We left Friday afternoon. By Saturday evening, Dawn had already sent me the first photos. They were outside a cafe, Lindsay and Mr. Keaton, seated at a corner table. No kid in sight, no school paperwork, just coffee, laughs, and her hand on his arm. The next photo hit me like a brick. Them kissing in his car. Not a quick peck, a long, slow kiss. Her eyes closed. I had to lock myself in the guest bathroom and scream into a towel. I didn't want Emma to hear. She was in the next room watching cartoons. Innocent. Trusting. My wife was cheating. And now I had proof. When we got back Sunday night, I pretended like I hadn't just seen my whole world collapse. Lindsay greeted us at the door with a hug. She kissed Emma's forehead, smiled at me, like she wasn't hiding anything. "How was work?" she asked without turning around. "Hot," I said. "You know Texas." She laughed. "Well, I missed you both." The audacity of it made my blood boil. I wanted to scream, "Missed us?" or just him. But I stayed calm, because now I had a plan. The next day, I called my lawyer. I told him I wanted to start preparing for a divorce. He asked the usual questions: assets, custody, evidence. When I told him about the PI and the photos, he said, "Good, that gives us leverage. especially if it's with someone who's around your daughter. That's a serious boundary. That word, boundary, hit me harder than I expected, because it wasn't just betrayal. It was a violation of our home, of our family, of our daughter's school. She didn't just cheat on me, she did it with someone Emma sees every day. Someone Emma likes. How do you explain to a child that her teacher and her mother are sleeping together behind Daddy's back? 2 nights later, I staged it. The confrontation. I set up my phone camera in the living room, hit record, waited until Emma was asleep. Then, I asked Lindsay to sit down. She looked nervous immediately. What's going on? I need to talk to you about something serious. She frowned. Okay. I slid a manila envelope across the coffee table. She stared at it, didn't open it. What's this? Go ahead, look. She opened it, pulled out the photos. One by one, her face changed with each one. Shock, then fear, then a kind of cold defiance. She didn't cry, she didn't beg. She said, "You hired someone to follow me?" I said, "That's what you're mad about? Not the fact that you've been cheating on me with our daughter's teacher?" She stood up. "Mark, I didn't cheat. We've gotten close, that's all." I laughed. Close? You kissed him. You lied to me. You skipped your own daughter's recital to see him. She folded her arms. You don't understand what it's been like. You've been so distant, so busy. I needed someone to talk to. There's a difference between talking and I stopped myself. He's her teacher, Lindsay. She looked away. He's not going to be for long. What's that supposed to mean? She sighed. He's already looking at leaving the school, getting a new job. We're not stupid, Mark. We. That word felt like a knife. I said, you planned this. This wasn't some mistake. This has been going on for months. She didn't deny it. And that's when I knew. She was already gone. The next morning, I called the school, asked to speak to the principal, told them I had a serious concern regarding Mr. Keaton and a conflict of interest involving a student's parent. They were stunned, asked me to submit documentation. I did. I sent everything. The photos, the timeline, the messages. By that afternoon, Mr. Keaton was suspended pending investigation. Lindsay came home fuming. What the hell did you do? I protected our daughter, I said calmly. Something you stopped doing a long time ago. You ruined his career. He did that himself. She stormed upstairs, slammed the bedroom door, slept in the guest room that night. The silence between us was louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. 3 days later, she moved out. Said she needed space. Took only her clothes and her laptop. Left Emma's things behind. She didn't even try to take our daughter with her. I wanted to believe it was guilt. But deep down, I think she just didn't care enough. Lindsay was gone for 3 days. No texts, no calls, just silence. Emma asked about her once, "Where's Mommy?" And I told her, as gently as I could, that Mommy needed some time to think. She didn't cry. She just nodded and went back to coloring. I think on some level, even at 8, she understood something was broken. On the 4th day, Lindsay came back. Not with bags or a moving truck, just herself, standing in the doorway like someone who didn't know if she was still welcome. "I just want to talk," she said. I didn't answer. I stepped aside and let her in. She walked into the living room and sat on the edge of the couch like a guest in a stranger's home. Her eyes were puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept. "I know I messed up," she said, "but I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I sat across from her, arms crossed, guard up. "You mean the affair, or dragging our daughter into it?" She winced. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone." I laughed. "That's rich. You were sneaking around with her teacher, Lindsay. Do you know what that's going to do to her when she finds out?" "She doesn't have to find out," she said quickly. "We can keep it between us." I stared at her, stunned. "You still think this is about damage control?" She leaned forward, desperate now. "Look, I panicked. I was lonely. I made a stupid choice. But it's over. He's not even teaching anymore. Can't we just reset?" "You think this is something you can just reset?" I said, standing up. "You think I'm going to sleep next to you again? Pretend it didn't happen?" Her voice cracked. "I'm saying I want to fix this, Mark. For Emma." For us. No, I said, flatly. You want to save face because people are starting to talk, because you're embarrassed, not because you're sorry. She looked down, saying nothing, which told me everything I needed to know. I've already filed. You'll get the papers by next week. She looked up sharply. You what? I'm filing for a divorce with full custody of Emma. Her mouth dropped open. You can't just take her away from me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Watch me. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and tense drop-offs. We agreed, on paper, that Lindsay would have supervised visitation on weekends, but she rarely showed up. And when she did, Emma came back quieter than usual. I asked her once, gently, if Mommy said anything strange. She just shook her head and asked to go play with her dolls. I didn't push, but it haunted me. Lindsay's lawyer tried to paint me as controlling, said I interfered with her parenting. But the photos, the affair with a teacher who had direct access to our child, that was too damning. My lawyer played it well, calm, methodical, the kind of guy who doesn't flinch when the opposing side cries in court. The judge didn't make a final decision yet, but the signs were clear. They were leaning toward me. Then came the worst part. One afternoon, Emma's school called, said someone had tried to pick her up without authorization. I left work in a rush, heart pounding, already knowing what I'd hear. It was her mother, the front desk lady told me, but she wasn't on the approved list. When we told her that, she got angry, said she was the girl's mother and didn't need permission. I clenched my fists. Did Emma see her? The receptionist hesitated. Yes, she was already near the front. She started crying when she saw them arguing. I closed my eyes. That night, Emma wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk, just curled up in bed with her stuffed bunny and stared at the ceiling. I sat on the edge of her bed and stroked her hair. Do you want to talk about what happened today? She shook her head. Mommy was yelling. I didn't like it. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry. She turned to me then. Are you mad at Mommy? I swallowed hard. I'm sad, Emma, and disappointed, but I'm not mad at you. You didn't do anything wrong. She nodded. Then she whispered, I don't want to go with her anymore. My heart broke, but I kept my voice steady. Okay, I'll talk to the court. You don't have to go if you don't want to. And that was it. The last time Emma asked for her mother. Lindsay didn't go down quietly. She filed a counter-motion for joint custody, claimed I had manipulated Emma, that I was trying to erase her. Her lawyer even tried to suppress the photos, saying they were illegally obtained. Didn't work. Don LaHallister had done everything by the book. Chain of evidence, proper documentation, dates and times. The judge accepted it all. By the third court appearance, Lindsay had changed. She looked smaller, worn down. Her confident posture was gone. She avoided my eyes. At one point during a break, she passed by me and muttered, You're really going to destroy me, aren't you? I didn't answer, because it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protection. For Emma, for myself, for the life I still wanted to build. She destroyed herself. I just stopped shielding her from the consequences. It took 6 months, but finally it was done. I got primary custody. She got supervised visits once a month. She didn't even fight it by the end, just nodded and signed the documents. The judge looked at me before closing the case and said, Mr. Holloway, I hope your daughter knows how lucky she is to have you. I nodded, but in truth, I felt hollow. Not victorious, not relieved, just tired. A month after the papers were finalized, I got an email. It was from Mr. Keaton. Subject line, closure? I almost deleted it, but curiosity won. Inside was a short message. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go that far. She told me you two were separated. I never would have done it otherwise. I lost my job. I've moved out of state. I hope your daughter is okay. No signature. No forwarding address. Just digital dust. I didn't reply, because I didn't care about his guilt or his excuses. He was just another man who let his weakness destroy someone else's home. And I had spent enough time cleaning up other people's messes. Life after the divorce was quiet. Too quiet, sometimes. Emma and I settled into a new routine.
Mornings with pancakes and school runs, evenings with books and brushing teeth. Weekends filled with trips to the zoo or just hanging out at home watching Disney movies on repeat. She laughed more, slept better. The dark clouds that used to hang over her face whenever Lindsay's name came up started to fade. And I thought we were finally okay. Then Lindsay showed up again. Not on a scheduled visit, not through the court. She showed up at my house, at night. I was getting Emma ready for bed when I heard the knock. I opened the door, and there she was, standing in the porch light, clutching a folder to her chest like it was a shield. "Mark," she said softly, "can we talk?" I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "You're not supposed to come here unannounced." "I know, I didn't know who else to go to." I crossed my arms. "Is this about Emma?" "No." She looked down. "It's about me." I didn't say anything, just waited. She held out the folder. I took it. Inside were medical records, scans, lab results. One word jumped out at me from the top page: oncology. Cancer. My chest tightened. "What is this?" I asked. "I was diagnosed last week. Ovarian. Stage 2, maybe 3. They're still running tests." I didn't know what to say. Despite everything, I didn't want this for her. For anyone. "I'm sorry," I said. And I meant it. She nodded. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for time." Time. With Emma, she said, more than once a month, maybe weekends, maybe even nights if I'm feeling strong enough. I took a breath. "We have an agreement. A court order." She looked up at me, eyes shining. "She's my daughter, Mark, and I might not have much time left. Please don't take this away from me." And just like that, I was back in the eye of the storm. I didn't agree right away. I told her I'd think about it. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours. It felt like a trap, like another manipulation. But what if it wasn't? What if she really was dying? What if I said no and Emma lost her chance to say goodbye? What would that do to her later when she was old enough to understand? By morning, I had made a decision. I called my lawyer. We arranged for temporary supervised time at a family center, 2 afternoons a week. Emma could see her, but never be alone with her. When I told Lindsay, she didn't complain. She just said thank you and wiped away a tear. The visit started 2 weeks later. The first one was awkward. Emma clung to me as we walked into the center. She asked, "Do I have to?" I said, "You don't have to do anything, sweetheart, but Mommy's sick and she wants to see you." Emma nodded, but her grip on my hand didn't loosen. When she finally walked into the room, Lindsay tried to hug her, but Emma hesitated, stood still. That broke my heart in a different way. I watched from behind the glass. Lindsay talked, Emma listened. Eventually, she sat beside her, drew something together. It wasn't healing, but it was something. The visits continued. Sometimes Emma seemed happier after, sometimes quieter, but never upset. So I let it go on. Until one day, I walked into the center and Lindsay wasn't alone. Sitting beside her was a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, balding, nervous smile. Lindsay stood up as I entered. "Mark, this is James. He's, my partner." "Excuse me?" I said coldly. She rushed to explain, "It's recent. He's been helping me through the treatments. I just thought Emma should know who he is." I stared at James. He extended a hand. I didn't take it. "You don't bring strangers to these visits," I said sharply. "This is not part of the agreement." "Mark, I stepped closer. "You want your time with Emma? Fine. But don't use it to introduce new men into her life, especially after what happened last time." James looked confused. Lindsay looked humiliated. We left. Emma didn't say a word the whole ride home. When we got back, she finally asked, "Is Mommy going to marry him?" I gripped the steering wheel. "I don't know, baby. I hope not." And I meant that more than I could explain. 2 weeks later, Lindsay filed a petition. She wanted to modify custody permanently, citing her illness and positive family support from her new partner. It was madness. She was sick, unstable, and had barely repaired any relationship with her daughter. But she wanted joint custody. Again. I was furious and terrified. Because this time, she was playing the sympathy card in front of a judge. And some judges fall for that. My lawyer was livid. We gave her an inch. She's trying to take the whole damn road. We prepared to fight again. More documents, more evidence. I even got statements from the family center, describing how Emma was withdrawn after certain visits, how Lindsay tried to blur boundaries. When the court date came, Lindsay looked frail, pale, head wrapped in a scarf. James sat beside her, holding her hand, and for a second, I hated how the judge looked at her. Like she was a victim. Because I was the one picking up the pieces. I was the one Emma clung to at night. But cancer made her untouchable. Almost. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't attack her. I told the truth. I described the affair, the betrayal, the damage to our daughter. I described the recovery, the slow rebuilding of trust, the fear in Emma's eyes. And then I said simply, I don't want to take Emma away from her mother, but I want to protect her. Lindsay has chances. She has manipulated everyone. I'm begging this court, don't let her do it again. The courtroom was silent. Even Lindsay cried, but I didn't, because I had no tears left for her.
The court ruled in my favor again. Full custody remained with me. Lindsay's petition was denied. The judge cited continued emotional instability, inappropriate boundary setting, and prior breach of supervised visitation terms. Lindsay didn't even look surprised when the ruling came down. She just stared ahead, blank, like the fight had left her long before we entered that courtroom. James put an arm around her. She didn't react. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was exhaustion, because I knew it wasn't over. Not really. Not as long as she was still alive. Not as long as Emma still carried pieces of her inside her heart. 2 weeks later, Emma stopped talking. Not completely, but the light inside her dimmed. She barely responded to questions. She went from a bubbly, bright little girl to someone who stared out the window for hours. I tried everything. Took her to the park, her favorite ice cream place, even let her paint her bedroom walls whatever color she wanted. Nothing worked. Then one night, I found her crying in her closet, clutching an old photo of her and Lindsay at the beach. "Sweetheart," I said, kneeling beside her. She looked up at me, face streaked with tears. I miss her. I didn't know what to say, because I missed who Lindsay used to be too, before the lies, before the affair, before everything fell apart. But how do you tell an 8-year-old that missing someone doesn't mean you can trust them again? The next day, I called the child therapist we'd been seeing on and off since the divorce, Dr. Marianne Kessler, kind, soft-spoken, and the only adult Emma seemed to open up to. After a long session, Dr. Kessler called me in privately. She's scared. Not of you, not even of her mother, really. She's scared that everything she loves will go away. She doesn't understand why she can't see her mom more. She does, the therapist corrected. She just doesn't want to accept it. And she's blaming herself. That hit me like a sledgehammer. I asked, she thinks she did something wrong? Yes, she thinks maybe if she had behaved better, none of this would have happened. God, what kind of damage does it take for a child to carry that? That night, I sat on the edge of Emma's bed, watching her sleep, and I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I picked up my phone, texted Lindsay. Emma is hurting. She needs closure. 1 visit, supervised. My house, no James, just you. That's it. She replied almost instantly. Thank you. I swear, just 1 visit. I'll be on my best behavior. The visit was set for Sunday afternoon. I cleaned the house like it was a state inspection, cooked Emma's favorite mac and cheese. When Lindsay arrived, she looked thinner, paler, but calmer than I remembered. Emma ran to her before I could say anything, threw her arms around her mother and cried. Lindsay hugged her tightly, whispering something I couldn't hear. For a moment, I saw them, just a mother and daughter, nothing else. No betrayal,
no past, just love. And I hated that it still made me feel something. They sat on the couch together for over an hour, drawing, talking, laughing even. I stayed close, but gave them space. Watched like a security guard, but didn't interfere. It was almost normal until Lindsay said, "I brought you something." She pulled out a wrapped box from her bag. I stepped forward immediately. "Lindsay," she said, "it's just a gift. Nothing weird, I promise." Emma tore it open. Inside was a small music box, pink, with hand-painted flowers. She opened it. A soft lullaby played. She smiled. "It's beautiful." Lindsay smiled back. "It was mine when I was little. Now it's yours." Emma stood up and hugged her again. "Thank you, Mommy." That was the moment I realized this visit wasn't about closure for Lindsay. It was her goodbye. She never said it aloud, but I saw it in her eyes. 2 nights later, I got the call. It was the hospital. Lindsay had collapsed at home. Internal bleeding. They tried surgery. It wasn't enough. She died at 2:41 a.m. I sat in the kitchen, phone in one hand, forehead pressed to the table, while Emma slept upstairs, blissfully unaware that the world had shifted again. I didn't know how to tell her. How do you tell a child that the person they just started to forgive is gone? The next morning, I held her hands and told her everything. She didn't cry at first, just stared at me wide-eyed like she didn't believe it. Then slowly her shoulders started shaking. She buried her face in my chest and sobbed. For hours. And I held her. I let her scream, let her hate me, let her blame the sky. Because grief has no rules. Only pain.
The funeral was small, quiet. Just a few co-workers, distant cousins, and me, standing in the back while Emma held my hand so tightly it turned red. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just stood there and watched as the woman who'd once been my best friend, my wife, the mother of my child, was lowered into the ground. Emma placed a flower on the casket, a daisy. It was Lindsay's favorite. Then she turned to me and said, "Can we go now?" I nodded. And just like that, we walked away from a chapter that was supposed to be closed. I thought it would get easier after that. That grief, even in a child, would slowly lose its edge. But Emma changed. Not in loud ways, in quiet, unsettling ways. She stopped drawing, stopped talking about her friends, stopped smiling when I made her favorite pancakes. She became obsessed with the music box, opened it every night before bed, wound it again and again like she was afraid it would disappear if she didn't keep it alive. I caught her whispering to it once. When I asked what she was saying, she looked at me and said, "I'm just telling her about my day." I didn't push. I couldn't. Because I was doing the same thing, just in silence. A week after the funeral, I started going through Lindsay's personal effects. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Closure, maybe, or something to make sense of the last 2 years. What I didn't expect to find was money. A lot of it. Hidden in an old savings account we'd opened early in our marriage and never really used. I only discovered it by accident. An automated tax notice arrived with her name still listed, referencing a non-primary asset. When I checked the account, there was over $212,000 sitting in it, and the deposits were strange. Irregular amounts, inconsistent sources, mostly cash. It didn't match her real estate commissions. It didn't match anything. I went to the bank in person, asked for a full history of the transactions. Some deposits were made under her name, others were anonymous cash deposits, and some, disturbingly, were transferred from a Pay Me Plus account, linked to a different name entirely. Monica Hale. That wasn't her name. It wasn't any name I recognized. But when I Googled it, I found an online alias, a Pay Me Plus profile used to send private content, adult content, lingerie photos, suggestive voice notes. Nothing explicitly illegal,
but enough to send a chill down my spine. The profile had over 1,900 followers, and the profile picture was Lindsay, wearing glasses and a red wig, smiling at the camera like it was just a game. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. She had been living a second life, not just an affair, not just betrayal. She was selling herself online while pretending to be someone else, while raising our daughter. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room, but I didn't, because part of me needed to know how far it went. I found a connected email, password protected, but we'd been married long enough. I guessed a variation of Emma's birth date and her favorite band. It worked. Inside were hundreds of messages, requests, negotiations, payments, and something else. Messages between Lindsay and Mr. Keaton, long before the affair had started. Turns out he wasn't some innocent teacher she accidentally grew close to. He had followed her online, contacted her through the alias, and she agreed to meet him months before they ever crossed paths in person at Emma's school. He knew who she was. He targeted her, and she let him. I sat at the kitchen table until 3 a.m. reading every word. At one point, I felt sick and ran to the bathroom. Not just from disgust, but from betrayal layered on betrayal. She hadn't just lied to me, she had lied to herself, built a fantasy life online and invited a predator into our real one. And the worst part? She brought that predator into our daughter's life. I had gone to war with her for custody, fought tooth and nail to protect Emma from what I thought was an affair. But this was exploitation, and it had been going on far longer than I knew. The next day, I met with Don McAllister, the same PI who helped me the first time. I gave him everything: emails, account names, screenshots, the Pay Me Plus archive. He whistled low. Jesus, Mark, this isn't just messy. This is criminal. What do I do? I asked. He looked at me, steady, unblinking. You protect your daughter. You document everything. And then you make sure no one like Keaton ever comes near her again. Even if he's out of state? Especially if he is. These guys don't stop. They just change zip codes. That night, I sat with Emma, held her hand. Sweetheart, I said gently, do you remember Mr. Keaton? She looked uncomfortable. Yeah. Did he ever say anything weird to you? Anything that made you feel unsafe? She shook her head. No, but I didn't like how he looked at Mommy. What do you mean? She hesitated. Like he was pretending. Like he was nice in front of me, but mean when I wasn't there. My blood went cold. Did Mommy ever tell you not to tell Daddy about him? She nodded. That was enough. I contacted the district attorney the next morning, sent over everything. Emails, account names, screenshots, the statement from Emma. They opened an investigation. And within a week, I got confirmation. There was already a sealed report involving Mr. Keaton from another school district 5 years ago. He had been quietly relocated without a formal charge. Classic shuffle. But now, with new evidence, the DA was preparing a full case, and I would testify gladly. The assistant district attorney handling the case, a sharp woman named Rachel Suarez, called me in for a formal interview. She was no-nonsense, direct, and had the kind of voice that made people sit up straight. She laid out the strategy. The emails between Lindsay and Keaton were enough to establish a pre-existing relationship. Combined with his disciplinary history, it painted a picture of predatory grooming masked as romance. But it wasn't enough. He's smart, she said. He's going to claim he didn't know she had a child until after they started seeing each other. He'll say it was all consensual, just messy. The court won't care about morals. They want proof of risk to minors. I nodded. You want Emma to testify? No, absolutely not. She's a minor. We'll use her statement, but I'd never put her through open court. Then what do you need? She leaned in. We need to know if there's anyone else. Anyone Lindsay talked to. Other men, other accounts. Anything that proves Keaton wasn't alone in this. And that's when a memory struck me. A week before Lindsay died, before the final supervised visit, Emma had said something odd. We were watching a cartoon, and she turned to me and said, "I don't like the man with the tattoo." "What tattoo?" I asked. "The one who came with Mommy once. He had a dragon on his hand." I thought she meant James, her boyfriend at the time. But I'd met James, polite, mild, accountant-looking, no visible tattoos. At the time, I chalked it up to a misunderstanding, maybe something from a dream. But now, I brought it up to Rachel. She raised an eyebrow. "A tattoo on the hand?" I nodded. Emma remembered it clear as day. She wrote it down. "That's not James. That's someone else. Someone who came with Lindsay during one of the supervised visits, or maybe even before they were court-ordered." She looked up. "Do you have access to home surveillance? Anything before the court appointed the visitation center?" I paused. Then I remembered. The nanny cam. We'd installed it when Emma was a toddler, hidden inside a smoke detector in the living room. I hadn't thought about it in years, but it was still there, connected to an old email account and a cloud storage system I hadn't checked since 2019. I spent the whole night digging. Login, password reset, verify two-step authentication, and then there it was. Hundreds of time-stamped clips. Most of them uneventful. Emma playing with blocks, Lindsay watching TV. But on January 3rd, during the early custody battle, there was a 27-minute clip marked motion detected 4:12 p.m. I opened it and felt my spine go ice cold. Lindsay entered the house with Emma. Behind her was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, rough-looking, mid-40s, shaved head. And on his right hand, a tattoo of a coiled dragon. Emma looked uncomfortable. She clutched a stuffed bear to her chest. Lindsay said something I couldn't hear, then walked into the kitchen. The man sat on the couch, pulled out his phone, then he snapped a photo of Emma. Quick, casual, like it meant nothing. I paused the video, rewound, watched it again. My chest tightened with rage. That wasn't just rude, that was calculated. Who the hell was he? I sent the footage to Rachel. Her reply came within an hour. "We know him. Name's Travis Denton. Convicted in 2011 for distribution of explicit materials. Did 6 years, got out in 2018. We had no idea he was in this orbit." I stared at the screen, heart pounding. "He's not just a friend," she added. "He's a recruiter." That word hit me like a truck. Recruiter. Lindsay hadn't just cheated, hadn't just played online games with men's wallets. She had, willingly or unwillingly, opened the door to something much darker. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Emma's room, watching her chest rise and fall as she dreamed. And I swore to myself I would never let anyone near her again. Within a week, Rachel's team executed a search warrant. They raided Denton's place, found dozens of devices, backed up chat logs, photo archives, PayMe Plus transactions, and Lindsay's alias was all over them. Monica Hale had not just been one identity, she had been a funnel, drawing in followers, selling content, offering private sessions. Keaton had been the first to cross the boundary into real life, but he wasn't the only one trying to, and one of the other men on those longs had already been arrested 3 years prior in a completely different state. This wasn't random, it was a network. The hardest part was explaining it to Emma. Not the full truth, I could never put that weight on her shoulders. But I told her the man with the dragon tattoo wasn't a friend of Mommy's, that he was a bad person and the police were making sure he'd never come near us again. She nodded slowly. "Is that why Mommy got sick?" I paused. "No, sweetie, that was something else, something we couldn't control." She looked down. "But she let the bad man in." I didn't know what to say, so I just held her. And she whispered, "I don't want to see her in dreams anymore." That night, I locked every window, set new passwords on every device, changed our Wi-Fi, upgraded the home security. I wasn't just trying to be cautious. I was trying to erase every ghost she left behind.
6 months later, the courtroom was packed. The case had made local news. A former elementary school teacher and a known sex offender tied together in a digital exploitation network that used aliases, encrypted pay sites, and worst of all, access to minors through trust. I sat in the back row. Emma wasn't with me. She was at home, safe, with my sister in Houston for the summer. I didn't want her anywhere near this nightmare's final chapter. Keaton pled not guilty, said he didn't know Lindsay had a daughter, said he thought her Monica persona was just roleplay. But the evidence buried him. The emails, the photos, the surveillance footage. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. On 3 felony counts. Sentenced to 24 years without parole.
Denton's case was separate, but his charges were worse: distribution, coordination, intent to profit from exploitation. He took a plea deal, got 32 years, no chance of early release. I thought I'd feel triumphant, but when I walked out of that courtroom, I just felt clean, like a weight had been lifted. The past, so tangled, so rotten, was now nailed shut in files and prison cells. And Emma? She didn't know the details, only that the bad men were gone forever. I planned to keep it that way. We moved 2 weeks later, packed up our things, left Austin. I sold the house, closed the accounts, transferred jobs, took a new position with a cybersecurity firm in Colorado. Remote work, mountains nearby, quiet. Fresh air and snow and distance. That's what we needed. Emma started smiling again. She made friends, joined a kids' hiking club, learned how to bake pancakes on her own, and insisted they were better than mine. She kept the music box on her nightstand, but she didn't open it anymore, not once since the move, until one rainy Thursday. I was working in the kitchen when I heard the faint chime. I walked into her room. She was sitting cross-legged, the box open, and a small envelope in her hand. "Daddy," she said, holding it out, "there was something under the velvet." I took it, heart thudding. The envelope was old, faded, sealed. On the front, in Lindsay's handwriting, it said, "For Mark, only if I'm gone." I stared at it for a long time, then sat down on her bed and opened it. The letter was short, only 1 page, but it changed everything. "Mark, if you're reading this, I'm dead, and you probably hate me. Maybe you should. I won't defend the affair or the lies or what I let into our home, but I need you to know one thing. I didn't start it. I didn't seek it out. I was lonely, depressed, and the Monica account, it was a joke at first, a stupid thing I set up with a friend after a wine night. But it got attention, money, and I kept going. I convinced myself it was harmless, until Travis messaged me. He said he could help me grow. He had strategies, tools. I didn't realize what he really was until it was too late. When Keaton showed up at the school, I panicked. I knew I should run, but he made me feel seen. He talked like I was smart, worth something. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to believe this part. I never let them hurt Emma. Ever. I swear to God, I watched every second. I kept her safe the only way I could with half-truths and fake control. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe I'm still a coward. But she's yours now. She always was. Don't let her remember me for my worst choices. Please. Lindsay. I read it twice, then folded it and locked it in my desk drawer. Not because it excused her, it didn't, but because, somehow, it gave me something I didn't realize I needed. A final answer. She had fallen. Deep. But she wasn't a monster. Just broken. And maybe, just maybe, in her last days, she tried to patch something back together. Emma never asked what the letter said, and I never told her. Some truths stay where they belong, buried beneath velvet, behind music boxes, and under layers of memory softened by time. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the lullaby. But now it doesn't haunt me. It reminds me of everything we survived, and everything we're still building. Together.